From the New Testament this morning, from the Gospel of John, John 21, verses 1 through 19. After Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, he then revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana of Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." And they said to him, "We will go with you." They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the beach, yet the disciples did not know it was Jesus. And Jesus said to them, "Children, have you any fish?" And they answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now there was not able to haul it in for the quantity of fish. And that disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his clothes, for he was stripped from work, and sprang into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far off land, about 100 yards off. When they got on the land, they saw a coal of fire there, and fish lying on it, and bread. And Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. And Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now none of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" Yet they knew it was the Lord. And Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. And this is now the third time that Jesus had revealed himself as he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" And he said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said, "Feed my lambs." The second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And he said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said to him, "Tend my sheep." Then he said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And this time Peter was aggrieved because he'd asked him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you girded yourself and walked where you would. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry where you do not wish to go." This he said to show what death he was to glorify God. And after this, he said to him, "Follow me." Friends, the word of the Lord. Well, thank you for having me again this Sunday. I appreciate coming up, and it's always wonderful to be with you. Well, the story this morning that we heard from the New Testament is a familiar one, right around the Eastertide season. It's about Peter and Jesus meeting by the Sea of Galilee in the early morning, mist with a fire and breakfast. And Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" Obviously, this goes back to Peter's denial of Jesus as he is arrested. And he asks this question 3 times. It's a question that hits us all at some point, for all of us at some point in our life, in our walk with the Lord, that we possibly have lost our way, and we need to find our way back. Or we know someone this has happened to. This is part of many journeys of faith. You know, when I was a kid, Merle Haggard was a legendary country singer. And a lot of you know Merle Haggard. I believe he passed away here just recently. And I remember one time he had a conversation with Johnny Cash. And Merle had spent some time in prison. And a lot of people didn't know that. And all of a sudden he came back, he got his life together, he began singing, became a big country star. And he went to Johnny and he said, "You know, they're about to come out with to tell people that I was in prison. Now, Johnny Cash only spent like a night in prison. Merle Haggard spent a good bit of time in prison. And his early life was kind of bad. And Johnny says, look, just tell the public. They will forgive you. And that's what happened. Johnny Cash was full of some good advice. Remember one time the Oak Ridge boys went to him. They'd been singing in churches and doing stuff like that. And they got tired of singing in churches. Churches didn't always accept things that they did, And they went to see Johnny Cash, and maybe they thought, well, maybe Johnny Cash would back us with some funding, some help. Maybe we could get off the ground and actually begin to sing. And Johnny heard him sing, and he says, I'll back you all the way. You guys are great. And they got together afterwards, and they said, if Johnny Cash believes in us, we're going to make it. They didn't take a dime from Johnny Cash, just advice. And it became the Oak Ridge Boys. Well, Merle was Johnny Cash's good friend. He said, you got to tell him. And then he wrote this song. And he found his way back. And he wrote this song. And you hear it even now on the radio sometimes. He had a wonderful voice. He says, first thing I remember knowing was a lonesome whistle blowing, a youngin's dream of growing up to ride. On a freight train leaving town, not knowing where it's bound, no one could change my mind, but Mama tried. Her one and only rebel child from a family meek and mild, my mama seemed to know what was in store. Despite all my Sunday learning, I like that part, towards the bad I kept on turning till mama couldn't hold me anymore. And in the course, I turned 21 in prison, doing life without parole. No one could steer me right, but mama tried, mama tried. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied. That leaves only me to blame, because mama tried. My dear old daddy, rest his soul, left my mom a heavy load. So she tried so very hard to fill the shoes. Working hours without rest, wanted me to have the best. She tried to raise me right, but I refused. And then the chorus again. And I turned 21 in prison, doing life without parole. No one could steer me right, but mama tried, mama tried. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied. That leaves only me to blame, because mama tried. Brilliant song, and great writing on that song. It's easy to think that, there is that sometimes we can't be redeemed. But the real truth is there is no place so far away, no prison so dark, no place so deep or terrible that the light of God's redemptive love does not shine. In that darkness, his light shines even greater. God is not ever done with us. He is constantly calling to us his children, and he never, ever, ever gives up. If you've ever had a child in your family go astray, or a parent even, something like that, you know how heart-wrenching it is and how hard you try to find their way back. Maybe you've lost your way somewhere along the way, and maybe it took years to find your way back. Some days it seems hopeless that a child will find their way back, but God never gives up. Maybe in the old story this morning we can find some help. We can find a little solace, a little comfort for our hearts that yearn for that loved one, hearts that break for ourselves. So let's look at the scripture that we read this morning from John 21. The miraculous catch of fish. I love the scene. I've been to the Sea of Galilee. It's a really beautiful lake. I took a boat ride from one end to the other end. And so Jesus is down towards the south end where it starts the Jordan River. And he's standing on the shore. And this is where he called many of the disciples. So it's sort of a classic place. And Peter and the disciples, they're brokenhearted. They'd followed Jesus for 3 or more years. He was on the cross. He died. And, they don't know what to do. So they do like a lot of us do. They decide to return to their old lives. And the line goes like this. Peter said, I'm going fishing. Now, it didn't mean like he was going to take a trip and go trout fishing or something like that. He was going back to commercial fishing. This is what their family did. And so the other one said, too, we'll go with you. Okay? So they're just as brokenhearted as he is. Of course, he denied Jesus 3 times. He's just terrible about it, the whole thing. He probably felt that he didn't have any choice at that point or whatever. And, as Jesus comes, there's no big fanfare. He's just standing on the shore, and it's early in the morning. The disciples have fished all night, and the sun's coming up. Jesus has built a little fire, all right, small fire. It says he has coals there. So the guys are out about 100 yards from the shore, and Jesus called out, hey, you caught any fish? Now, if you're a fisherman, fished all night, and somebody yells out to you like that, it doesn't always go well, okay? There might not have been the nicest words, And they're like, no. The Bible, they don't always write all the words in, so you can fill them in yourself. So they say, no, we haven't caught any fish, He says, throw your nets on the right side and you'll catch some. Now, it wasn't unusual that day for someone on shore to get high up and they could look down on the water and actually see the fish that you couldn't see from the boat. But in my mind's eye, I think it's a foggy morning. The sun's just coming up. There's probably no way you can see it. And, you would want to yell back something derogatory, like, what the heck do you. So, but the guys in the boat, they're like, why not? What the heck? What have we got to lose? Usually in a boat where you've got a big net and you're casting it out, usually one side of the boat is the side you got cleared off to put the net out. He says, put it out on the other side. So they're like, well, okay. And they put it out, and it says they caught 150 or more big fish. This is a load for these guys. They're going to make profit that day. It's going to be great. And one of the guys says, man, it's the Lord. And it says Peter didn't have, I don't think he had any clothes on, and that kind of thing, he probably didn't. It says he put his clothes on and he jumps in the water, and they were only 100 yards from shore, and it's maybe not that deep there, so sort of swimming, walking on the bottom. And the other guys, they're dragging the net to shore because it's too much to roll into the boat. And there's Jesus, and it says he's got bread. Maybe he's making bread. And I don't know if you've ever been there or not in your grandma's house or your own home, but when somebody's up and they're making breakfast for you and you come out and you kind of down, that's just one of the most beautiful things in the whole world. And they're talking to you and that sort of thing. That's wonderful, It's all blessing. So, that's the scene that's happening. And hardly anybody is talking because they all know it's Jesus. So, we've all heard this story lots of times. Sunday school, Bible study, church camp, many boring sermons. Peter was lost, and he had denied that he knew Jesus 3 times when they'd taken him away. He was hiding when Jesus was on the cross. Even on Easter morning, he was hiding in a room, afraid to go out till he was called. Some big, brave fisherman. Yeah. And I'm sure that Peter felt that his life as a disciple was over. He even decided to go back to what he knew, his old profession, fishing. Maybe he could find some comfort, some way forward. And the other disciples followed him. They went with him. In all of this, Jesus is calmly watching from the shore. And you could be sure of one thing. Jesus is calmly, lovingly watching and waiting. And Jesus shows up at just the right moment. Peter and his friend have been out all night. They haven't caught a thing. He says, you caught any fish? No. So he throws it on the other side. And they say, it must be the Lord. You know, up to this point, nothing has worked outright. And when that young man says, it's the Lord, things change. And Peter knows that Jesus has come to see him. He's already appeared to some of the disciples. Why here? Why on the Sea of Galilee? Why fishing? Peter knows that Jesus has come to talk to him. And Peter could have made the choice to run, to leave, but Jesus is just standing on the shore. He's just waiting. He could have taken the boat back to the dock, could have returned to his old life. How in the world could he face Jesus after everything that had happened? Peter decides to do the hard thing. He goes to see Jesus. So he puts his clothes on, goes to shore, and there he finds Jesus, the Lord of the universe, making him breakfast. It's a comfort, you know. And he sits there, I'm sure, and he's just waiting, and Jesus is doing his thing, and he's there on the shore. And he says, why don't you bring some of the fresh fish in? He says, we'll cook some over the fire. So he's already got the coals there, and it's burned down. He was prepared. I'm sure one of the guys took his knife out, cut a couple of fish open, got them there. I'm not sure how Jesus put the fish over the fire. But if you ever go to Israel, and I encourage you to go, they have fish for breakfast. Now, I don't know how you feel about fish for breakfast. I was a little iffy about it myself. So anyway, they have vegetables for breakfast too. It's a little different. So he's cooking there, and he says to Peter, do you love me? And he says it 3 times, and finally Peter says, oh Lord, you know everything. You know I love you. And he says, fine, go forward and feed my sheep, take care of my sheep. And he goes on to become one of the greatest evangelists of all time. He changes the world and countless people's lives. He had found his way back. Now, he didn't find his way back on his own. The Lord was there to help him. We never find our way back on our own. One who is more powerful than us walks with us and loves us and guides us. So never give up hope. Jesus is always standing just a few yards away, calling out words of hope and encouragement, and he makes preparations for us. This fire of his caring never, never goes out.